Today, I'm going to share with you the exact 6-point test for hiring your first 2 sales reps who will actually close deals and not just look good on paper or talk real smooth. Now, I think a lot of founders think that hiring great sales reps is finding someone from a prestigious SaaS company who know all the buzzwords and post on LinkedIn really great thought leadership stuff. But here's the truth. The mindset like this is exactly why 90% of a founder's first sales hire close 0 deals. What you actually need is a systemic approach to identifying candidates who can thrive in your chaotic, zero brand, no support kind of startup environment. Because look, here's what I found after hiring sales folks myself and coaching over 200 SaaS founders just like you, is that skills that make someone successful at Salesforce, for instance, will be the exact things that make them fail in your 5 or 10 person startup. Right. And in the next kind of 15 minutes or so, I'm going to give you the exact 6-point screening framework and hiring kind of methodology that I've used, I think very successfully, and that I use with every single one of my coaching clients who wants to hire and build a sales team. We're going to cover how to spot kind of brand dependent reps, identify those who've only sold easy products, and I'll talk about what that looks like. And maybe most importantly, the one thing that trumps everything else when making your final decision about which sales reps to hire. So why should you trust me, right? So I've personally helped founders build sales teams that generate $20 million in collective revenue. And I've hired sales reps and sales teams before. And this framework has been battle tested by hundreds of startups, from really kind of complete beginners looking to hire their first reps to seasoned founders who are bringing in VPs of sales and really building out their team. And I promise, if you implement what I'm going to show you today, you will never hire another sales rep who talks the talk but can't close a deal. Okay, so here's something that I think will completely change how you think about sales reps and their backgrounds. And this first one is what I call brand dependency kind of red flag, right? I think a lot of founders get seduced by this shiny resume, right? Oh my gosh, this person worked at HubSpot. They must be just a genius. They must know how to sell enterprise deals. I got to get this guy or girl, right? But here's the reality from my experience is that reps who've only sold with big brands behind them are like Formula One drivers trying to race a go-kart, right? The playbooks, it's just completely different when you have 0 brand recognition. And I think as an aside, this is why the founder brand thing has become so popular, is because it overcomes that kind of brand cold start problem. People at least know who you are and your company. So you're not starting from a dead stop, right? Anyway, here's what happens, right, in this brand dependency issue is that reps expect warm inbound leads, like an established sales process and SOPs, and prospects who already kind of trust the company, because this is one of the 2 big things we have to overcome in sales, right? Is this going to work? And can you do this, right? And we're talking to that second one here. And when a rep from a big company X like that comes into your startup, they're going to be faced with cold outreach, right? Skeptical prospects, and having to explain what the heck your company even is and what you do before they can even get into a real sales conversation. And it all just falls apart there, right? And so the framework I like to use here when interviewing sales reps is, hey, tell me about their lead generation process at the last company, right? What did you do to generate your own leads? And if they say something like, oh, marketing qualified leads came through Salesforce automatically for me and I had it on a silver platter every day, or our brand recognition really helps open doors, I just stop the conversation there. And I say, hey, I just don't think you're a great fit for this. I'm sorry, we're just a different type of company. Because that person just can't be successful at an early stage startup. What you want to hear is something like, oh yeah, I had to create my own targeted lead list. I did 50 cold outbound prospect calls or DMs a day on LinkedIn. I had to educate the market about why they need this solution, right? Hustle, work ethic, scrappiness. These are all hugely important. And here is the really important insight with respect to this point. Success with a strong brand behind you is actually just an entirely different skill set in sales than without one, right? Don't confuse the 2. Okay, and here's where things get even a little trickier, is the easy product trap. And this is where good founders make great hiring mistakes, is they hire someone who crushed it selling traditional sales tools to sales teams maybe, right? And wonder why they can't sell anything to developers or fintech, for example. The product difficulty gap will drown even the most talented sales reps. But I see the opposite constantly. Reps who've sold simple, understood products trying to sell complex technical solutions. They melt under the pressure every single time, right? And actually, this is why I love helping technical SaaS founders become founder-led sales kind of rock stars, right? You, as technical founders, already get the technical side of things. You have really deep empathy for the journey your customer is going through. You just need to learn what a great sales process is like and how to engineer it. And hopefully I can help you here on the channel to do that. But that was me too, right? My degree is in biomedical engineering. And I was a really freaking great sales rep in my previous life in the medical device field because I could talk to doctors and hospital administrators at like PhD level, and you can too, right? But in hiring your first sales reps, here's like the framework when it comes to complexity. So give your product a score of complexity on a scale of like 1 to 10, right? If you're an 8, meaning like complex, like InfoSec software, don't hire someone who sold like a 3 or a 4, like a basic CRM tool, right? The learning curve here will just kill their performance and really just their opportunity. So what I look for instead is reps who've sold products that require really extensive prospect education, long demo cycles, and technical complexity. And they've developed this kind of muscle memory from complicated sales processes. So I might ask a question like, hey, tell me about the most complex product you've ever sold. How did you help prospects understand something they've never seen before? And their answer here is going to tell me really everything that I need to know about their ability to handle complex sales. Remember, it's always easier to take someone from a harder environment to an easier one, and the reverse is rarely true. And speaking of environments that matter, let's talk about price points, right? This one will save you months of frustration, years maybe, right? Your first reps must have sold at your price point for at least 18 months. When you have zero training infrastructure, which is the case in every single startup, right? They have to know how to sell the level of stuff that you're selling because selling motions and sales processes are completely different across price ranges. So if you're selling $1 million deal, it requires convincing like multiple stakeholders over 6, 9, 12, 18 months. Selling a $99 product is typically like a one-call close, and they just require completely different energy, skill sets, processes, and discipline. And when you only have 1 or 2 reps, there's no mentor. There's no training, right? There's no onboarding, there's no SOP, there's no script, there's no anything, right? So where do they learn how to sell at your price point? Well, they damn sure better have learned it at their old job, right? And so here's like a breakdown I use. So if you're from 1K to 10K, you're usually talking to a single decision maker, and the sales process is, 0 to maybe 4 weeks. If you're selling 10 to 50K, you might have like a small buying committee and a couple of stakeholders within an organization. The sales process is 1 to 3 months maybe. If you're 50 to 250K, you have multiple stakeholders and you're talking about a 6+ month sales process typically. And 250K plus, you're talking about a year or more. This is enterprise sales, right? And so just don't hire anyone who hasn't spent really significant time, a year, 18 months, 24 months, absolute minimum, and been successful at that, selling in your price band, right? They need to have this muscle memory and the skill set for your specific kind of sales motion. And so the question I ask in an interview is like, hey, walk me through your typical deal size and sales cycle at your last role. How long from first touch to close? If they've only ever sold 5K deals and you're selling $50,000 enterprise solutions, they're going to struggle and you shouldn't hire them. And yeah, like price point is really important, but it's kind of just one consideration. The support system that your new hire candidate is used to is also really important, right? I've seen a lot of founders get in trouble when they hire someone from a 300-person SaaS company who had sales engineers and solution architects, rev ops, and a full kind of enablement and ops and legal and billing team. And I'll drop them in as rep number 1 in a startup with 0 support infrastructure and process. And not surprisingly, these reps don't even realize how much they've relied on that support system in the past. They think like, oh, 4-week training program that was useless and their manager was incompetent. And what they don't understand is that going from some support to 0 support is like jumping off a cliff. I see it all the time, right? Reps from well-supported environments drowning at lean startups because they never had to demo, deploy, negotiate, review legal docs, figure out payments, and troubleshoot all this crap all by themselves, right? And so like as you're discussing this with a prospect, I'd like to ask really detailed questions about their support system. So like, hey, who helped you with technical demos? How did you handle implementation questions? Who was your go-to for like procurement and legal, right? What I want to hear are stories of them figuring all of this out by themselves, independently, wearing multiple hats, or just succeeding in environments with like minimal support. And red flags here would be like reliance on specialized team members, expecting other departments to handle objections, or their inability to just do the whole job all by themselves, right? Because in an early stage startup, your reps need to be like Swiss Army knives, right? Not specialized tool. Okay, I want to talk about like industry complexity because I think this is really important too. The complexity kind of curve, right? This is like a nuanced one, but I'll save you from the subtle hiring trap here. And it is, in my opinion, domain expertise is overrated, right? You can teach anyone the basics of almost any industry in 60 days, but selling complexity is an entirely different beast, right? So let's say you're in a highly regulated industry, right? Like financial services or environmental science or healthcare, right? You need reps who have sold in complicated environments too. Not necessarily like your exact industry, but environments that require navigating regulations, multiple stakeholders, and really nuanced decision-making processes. And I've seen this more times than I can count. Founders hire great reps from really simple SaaS companies to sell into complex industries, and they fail because they've never even had to think about, much less learn how to navigate institutional kind of complexity. And this applies big time to government as well. And so the framework here is I like to rate my kind of industry complexity, right? Regulations, stakeholders, decision processes on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't hire someone from a 3 complexity environment to sell to an 8 complexity industry like you might have. So I like to look for reps who've sold to engineers even if they're not engineers, or sold to physicians if they're not physicians. They've developed the skill to speaking to sophisticated buyers in complex environments. And you don't need domain expertise, but you do need complexity experience. Okay, so we've talked about 5 of these points so far, and really none of them matter if you don't get this last one right, because this last one will save you from, in my experience, like 90% of the bad hires. When you go to hire your first sales rep, make sure that no matter what, even if they haven't sold at your price point or with the support or industry background or complexity, that you would want to buy from them yourself. Because let's face it, right? Hiring and being hired is a sales process, right? And here's why this works. As a founder doing founder-led sales like you probably are today, even if you suck at it, you've closed 20, 50, 100,000 deals, right? You know what good selling looks like. You know who you'd trust with your precious early stage startup and leads, right? And the trajectory of your company going forward. And leads are everything in the early days. If you don't trust your new sales rep with these leads, you won't enable them, you won't train them, and you won't give them the good prospects. And they're going to fail, not just because they can't sell, but because you sabotage them. I've seen this more times than I can count. So this is kind of your spidey sense, right? When you interview that polished rep from this fancy SaaS company who knows all the acronyms and post-thought leadership crap on LinkedIn, ask yourself honestly, hey, would I buy my own product from this person? And if the answer is no, pass every single time. During the interview process, have them do kind of a mini pitch of maybe their previous product or what they know about your own to you. Pay attention to just how you feel. Are you convinced? Do you trust them? Would you write them a check? And your gut here is really everything, your founder intuition, because it's the same reaction that your prospects are going to have too. And when you eventually hire like a VP of sales, they'll hire people that you wouldn't buy from yourself, right? They'll build a system and processes to handle different personality types, but that's their problem. And that's a later stage thing than we're talking about right now. But in those early days, when you're hiring your first reps, you need reps who can sell the way you sell because you don't want to have to reinvent this wheel. Hiring your first reps is one of the highest stakes decisions you'll make as a founder. You get it right, you're going to accelerate your growth by years. But if you get it wrong, you're going to waste precious capital and momentum and opportunity on reps who can't close deals. And if you use this 6-point framework, but remember, point number 6 is the most important, more than anything else, right? If you wouldn't buy from them yourself, keep looking. If you want to make sure you nail your entire go-to-market strategy, not just sales hiring, I've created a complete framework for everything from ICP development to channel mastery. Link in the description below. And the bottom line here is great sales reps in the early days aren't just order takers. They're extensions of your founder vision. In these early days, you're not just hiring a great salesperson. You're hiring someone who's going to define what the entire sales organization at your company looks like. Let's make it count. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, smash the bell, and we'll see you next time.